another movie review. This time it's Candyman from 2021, a direct sequel to the 1992 classic of the same name, which featured the late great Tony Todd as he's become iconic at this point. I remember I was about 15 at the time the original came out. But on to the new one. We meet Anthony McCoy. And if you remember the first movie, we first met Anthony as a baby who was kidnapped by Candyman. And, well, you know the rest. He was rescued by Helen Lyle, played by Virginia Madsen. Well, in this new movie, we meet Anthony as an adult. He's an artist / photographer, and he learns about Cabrini Green. Well, someone tells him a story about Helen Lyle and how she was a grad student and she was doing a thesis on urban legends around Cabrini Green projects. And the urban legend was Candyman. So, and if you've seen the original movie, I really don't have to go into all that. But anyway, she dies in the fire, as we all know. I just said I'm not going into that movie, but back to this new one. He's a as I said, artist / photographer. He gets a bee sting on his right hand, and this is just the beginning of things to come for him. His destiny, if you will. As the movie goes on, his hand starts getting uglier and uglier. Like it's rotting away, this bee sting. But if you've seen this movie, you know what's happening. And if you've seen the original, you know what's happening. But, he has a girlfriend, Brianna, played by Teyana Paris. I hope I got her name right. I remember her from Spike Lee's Chirac. She was the star of that movie. But anyway, he goes to this shindig of, uppity, artsy people. And let me back up. I did mention he's a photographer. Okay. He's doing, research. And while he's out taking pictures of Cabrini Green as it is today. Well, this takes place in 2019. So, but anyway, he's taking pictures. That's how he gets the bee sting, while he's taking pictures. And anyway, he meets a man who lives around the area, a man named William, played by Coleman Domingo. He knows all about the legend of Candyman. And Anthony asked him, what's Candyman? And he tells him that for him, when he was a kid, Candyman was a man named Sherman Fields, who, kind of a strange character. He had a hook for a hand. He used to hand out candy to the kids around the way. But one day, in October, a razor blade was found in a young white girl's candy bag, and Sherman was suspected. And unfortunately for him, he was beaten to death by the police. turns out that Sherman was empty because a few weeks after he was beaten to death by police, more razor blades turned up in people's and kids' candy bags. So as he goes, back to the arty, uppity people. He's introducing this new project he's working on about, how should I say this, gentrification and whatnot. People, black people living in certain areas, isolate, redlined, I should say, in certain parts of Chicago. And there's this art critic, who she actually makes a comment about, black people being the real pioneers of the gentrification cycle. And later on, he goes to visit this critic at her apartment. She seems to have a change of heart about what she said earlier in the movie. She likes his work, and he actually explains to her, the real reason, why the hood is what it is. And he dares her to say Candyman. She goes to the bathroom, looks in the mirror. And while she's in the bathroom, his hand is getting worse and worse as the movie goes on. I mean, it's getting bad and ultimately he does make it to the hospital. And this is where he learns that he was born at this particular hospital, but his mother, played by Vanessa Williams, you might remember her from the first movie, Anne Marie McCoy. And she finally tells him the truth about what happened with him when he was a baby. Candyman wanted the baby to be one of his victims, but he had plans for him it all comes full circle. His hand's going bad, what's coming, and he keeps picking at it. I mean, it's real bad. And his girlfriend confronts him, Brianna. She wants to know what's going on with him. Finally, he goes to visit his mom, and she finally tells him, as I say, she finally tells him the truth. But before that, he also goes to see William again, and he tells him the whole story about who Candyman was. And I'm sure you've heard the whole story from the first movie. He was a Daniel Robitaille. He, like Anthony, was an artist who drew portraits of wealthy white families. And one day he was asked to, do a painting portrait of, the daughter of a Chicago factory owner. And you know the whole story. You know the rest. They fell in love. She got pregnant. She told her dad, and Daniel Robitaille was hunted down, beaten. His art hand was sawed off. A meat hook was jammed into his stump. They smeared honeycomb over his body. Bees stung him to death. And he was burned. No, they didn't sting him to death. He was still alive during all of this. When they set him on fire, that's what killed him. That's how he finally died. And Anthony knows exactly what's happening to him. So, and later in the movie, what's his name? William snatches him up, takes him, he calls the police and tells them that there's this guy, he's running around with a hook in his hand, and he's going crazy. While the police are on their way, he saws Anthony's hand off, and at this point, Anthony, the whole right side of his body looks like a giant, looks like a honeycomb. And so, he saws his hand off, stuffed the meat hook into his hand, into his stump, and now the cops show up. They shoot him dead. They put Brianna in handcuffs and in the back of the car. And the cop tells her that, she's going to go away for a while, for a long time. And she tells him that she's going to talk, but could you turn your mirror, Candyman? She says it 5 times, and he comes out, kills the cops. When I first saw this, I was like, whoa, I love this ending. And then that's when we see it. He swarmed all the swarms of bees, and slowly but surely we see Tony Todd's face. Tell everyone. And end credits. And I love the when they tell these backstory, the flashbacks. There's these like little images of paper puppets that tells this, that illustrates the backstory. And then in the end credits, and I love that music theme at the end too. What's the composer's name? Robert Aki Aubrey Lowe. Yeah, he did the new version of the music score that was originally by Philip Glass in the first movie. But yeah, I love the very end, the end credits, and the puppet imagery. I love that. That tells, stories of violence against black people. But, and it's just as good as the original, I think. There were sequels to that original from 1995 and then 1999, Candyman, Farewell to the Flesh, which I'm not a big fan of those. The original and 2021 are the ones that matter to me. But anyway, this is my review, and till my next video, I'll see you then. Later. Like, share, subscribe, and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. I know, I'm a little jittery when I'm on camera. I'm still finding my comfort zone when I do these videos. But anyway, later.